Maria already told me about this. This is the most difficult thing to understand. This is a spiritual experience, but it has a physical basis. To understand that there is a good physics behind it, you have to think differently. Don't think in terms of objects and energy acting on it and movement and displacement. Think in terms of waves and frequencies. Not me saying that alone. And the great quantum physicists say this. Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand the miracle or the secrets of the universe, think in terms of waves and frequencies. So very briefly, I'll try to condense this in a couple of minutes, but the complex object is a complex issue. Think of it. Our body is not basically just matter, placid, passive matter. Our body is made up of standing waves. And these standing waves interact with the waves around us. We produce waves, we radiate waves, we receive waves from outside. Everything, all these waves, interactions, interference patterns is called, produce specific inputs for our body. So depending on what our environment is, even on our mental state, our body responds differently. Okay, so if you now introduce an object, such as a sign, for example, that you'll be learning about, a sinus sign or an equal size cross, any other sign, a Y sign, introduced into a perceptual field, then obviously that makes a difference to your bodily state, because the wave patterns in that acted on by that sign also interact with your bodily state. So everything that happens to you, everything we do in this testing, in this healing process, actually has an effect on the body. Okay, so now this effect of the body, this can be a healing effect or a toxic effect. It's very seldom it's just a non-influential effect, an impassive effect. But how did we understand this? We have to see it somehow. We have to visualize it. And the great genius of Korbler was he could make visually understandable the response of the body. The body responds through very tiny movements. These are unconscious movements, involuntary movements. And these, we are not even aware of it normally. These happen all the time. And these are not random movements. If you change the perceptual field, if you introduce a sign, these movements will also change. So your whole bodily state is changing according to what signs you're using and you are experiencing. Now, these tiny little movements, to be visible, they have to be amplified. And what does the bioindicator do? It's an amplifier. It amplifies the tiny involuntary movements that are conduced from your body to your arm and to your hands. Now, Korbler's genius was that he codified these movements. These movements are not random, not anything that goes, follow a pattern. And the pattern has to do with your visual field, with what you perceive, with how you are interacting with the world around you. And Korbler tested for years until he came across this system that you learn about, is called the vector system, which he found that if the rod moves in a certain way, that means a certain state of the body. Maria will explain that. And because the whole rod movement actually allows you to visualize what is happening to your body. And what is happening to your body is a consequence of the visual field. It's a consequence of what you perceive. Your body is responding. Your body is constantly adjusting to the world around you. Whether it's a water vein underneath the ground, whether it's an electromagnetic field or a satellite on miles and miles above you, the body is responding to all things. And the move and the rod, this bioindicator dosing rod, moves accordingly And that is what Korbler shows. What does it mean in terms of health? How can we interpret these movements? And what can we do to bring about favorable movements? Because a favorable movements, it simply means that the body is in a good condition. We don't move the rod, we change the health of the body. If the body is healthy, good condition, the body moves in a certain way, as Maria will explain, as you know, moves horizontally, for example. If it moves vertically, it's not that the body, that the electromagnetic field is acting on the rod, it's acting on your body. And your body responds in a certain way. So tiny, involuntary, imperceptible movements. But the rod shows because it amplifies that movement. So everything you do has to do with the frequencies, with the wave patterns that happen in your body and in your environment. The secret of health is to try to live in an environment which produces healthy conditions, which is easy for the body to adjust to live with. Okay? And the healthy conditions are shown by the rod. So the rod is this amplifier that actually discloses, according to the system, the codified and worked out by Korbler, years and years of testing. It shows actually what it means in terms of health. So it moves up and down, sideways, moves at an angle, moves a circle clockwise or counterclockwise. All these have meanings, and this you'll be learning about it. It's not mystery. It's not purely a spiritual phenomenon. Of course, it's psychologically influenced, but it discloses something about the state of your body, state of your organism. The rod helps you to diagnose the state of your organism. And then the remedies that you'll be learning about that can be entered into play, show how you can re-establish the good equilibrium, good healthy conditions in your body. And that too will be shown by the movement of the rod.
Thank you, Ervin. May I ask a couple questions we have from our students, Ervin? I have a couple questions for you.
Yes.
So one question from Carmel is, does that mean that, and I think this is what you were saying because you said the rod is an amplifier, does that mean that it is like kinesiology, but instead of being manifested in your body, you transfer the answer through the rod? Is that a good interpretation of that?
The kinesiology is also a spontaneous response of the muscular system. Okay? And there's one kind of response of the body to the environmental influences, the questions that you ask in the kinesiology, for example. So it's basically similar, but it's not the same. It's analogous, but it's not the same.
Great question. Thank you for that, Carmel. And I also had a wonderful response from Erin. Erin had said she had two different experiences. In one moment, the rod was horizontal. It was going horizontally. And then her son started fighting. And immediately the rod went vertical, even though nothing else had changed. So she said because of that, she tested her emotional state on testing. She held a cup of milk, which she's allergic to, and it was vertical. Then when she engendered a feeling of love, the rod went horizontal, even though she was still holding the milk. Is there guidance on how to neutralize one's emotional state while testing? Because it was a beautiful point that Erin brought up. I would love to hear from you.
Well, it's a technical issue, and I'll let Maria respond to it.
Yes.
I only say this one thing. The psychological state of your body affects the physical condition of the body.
Of course.
So if you feel happy, if your son is fighting and you're worried about it, you're in a different state. Obviously, these involuntary movements of your body are going to be different. So the rod will show it also that there is a difference. Everything affects the movement of the rod, the whole condition of your body. So everything that you do has an effect. That you have to learn. Nothing is perfectly neutral.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Ervin. We appreciate all of your wisdom, my friend. Maria?
Okay, I hope I could clarify some of it. I just wanted to say that this is a very difficult subject matter, even for quantum scientists and thermodynamicists to understand, or electrodynamics. But the fact is that there is an explanation. There is an interaction between the body and the world around us. It's a very subtle interaction, but very effective, non-random. It follows a pattern. And if we can decode that pattern, we understand better the state of our body, and also can understand that what causes the state of the body, the good or bad things that are happening around us.
So
I leave it to Maria.
Okay, so I would like to ask you one more question. This distribution and polarization of the electric and magnetic field, we have a slide. Please show this.
This one.
This one, yes, this one. So please explain this.
Right. I would say this is the interaction of the electric and magnetic field. If these waves, which are perpendicular to each other at 90 degrees to each other, if they coincide, if we say that they're in phase, then they reinforce each other, even though they are perpendicular at 90 degrees angle. If they are at opposite ends, for example, when one of the waves is peaking, the other one is down in the throat, or vice versa, then they can cancel each other. They can go contrary to one another. If you look, for example, at the waves at the seaside, if a big wave comes and there's a smaller wave coming right behind it, which goes in the same direction, then the wave becomes bigger. It goes up higher on the beach. If the next wave comes just when this big wave is going down, is receding, then they work against each other. They cancel the force of it. They can actually even out the waves. So in-phase waves reinforce, diagonal waves cancel each other. That's the simple principle.